Hello all, this is Dr. Maslach talking to you about reciprocity.com. The E is written with a 3, and in this particular video, I want to talk to you about the majority and thinking about the majority. So if you don't know me, I'm an associate professor of innovation strategy and entrepreneurship, and I created this whole reciprocity project to give back as much as I possibly can. There were so many people that helped me out that I wanted to pay the favor forward and help you out. So right now I'm on my jog with my doggie Izzy. I'm going to show you her right now. There's Izzy. And I was thinking about the current conversation, which is really focused on the majority. So it's the summer of 2020, the coronavirus is going on, and the conversation and the messaging has switched that this is a problem. So it's a problem of only the people that are sick, or they are that they have underlying conditions. It's not focused on the majority, right? So this is the rest of us that have no underlying conditions and are healthy. And there's several problems with this particular kind of logic. First of all, I'm going to go there that this has tones that were actually underlying many of the atrocities that happened during the 1940s, during World War II, that it was based on sort of scientific logic, that we should focus on the best possible people and make sure that evolutionary, we advance the population very quickly, such that evolution can go much more quicker by focusing on the majority, the stronger people among us. So it has ideological tones that are not pleasing to me. However, in terms of what is going on around us, I think it's much more important to sort of think of performance. We have to think about performance if we want to succeed as not only companies, but as well as countries, and as well as multiple nation states around us, and families as well, right? So families have to do the exact same thing. So if you think about the logic of that, the majority in a family, particularly if you have small kids, really small kids, right? So infants, the majority is actually the parents. And if the parents just simply focused on their own health and well-being, the population wouldn't go very quickly, right? It wouldn't advance very quickly. However, I want you to think about in terms of where the majority of insight, the majority of innovations, or majority of performance actually comes from in a population. We think it's actually the average. Most of us think it's the average sort of individual. It's the collective that sort of push us forward. But generally, that's not true. If you look at the distributions of performance, the distribution of actions within a population, this goes for individuals, this goes for firms, so companies, right? This goes for all kinds of organizations, not-for-profits, for example, nation states that are performing at sort of the peak. We have what is called the Pareto distribution, and there's all sorts of reasons for this. It's I think it's called the ZIP-F distribution and sort of ZIP-F laws. But the logic is, it goes way back where we there was an economist that looked at this, and they looked at, where do the majority of change, where the majority of things actually happen, and it comes from 20% of the population. So 80% of the action, 80% of the outcomes come from 20% of something. And in general, we don't know what those 20% are. It's very difficult to identify where those top performers are and where they will come from, because the environment shifts, right? So the environment shifts all around us all the time. And in some environments, that 20% is different than in other environments, right? So if you are in, if you want history, for example, well, the 20% of people that understand history is probably going to be a lot older than the 20% of the people that don't understand history, right? So they're probably going to be a lot younger, right? So yeah, if you have experience, then that's actually going to benefit you. So underlying logic of that, if we want to capture those people and have a high-performing organization and a high-performing environment or a high-performing organization, high-performing families, you have to protect the people that you don't necessarily know are going to be top performing in a year from now, right? And it's very difficult to identify these particular things. It creates in an organization, it sort of creates exploratory behaviors when you protect people from feeling that they can't do something, that they can't speak out, that they're worried about their own performance, underlying conditions, whatever it is. If they are worried, or if they get removed, quote unquote, removed from a population or removed from a firm, because of, things happen, right? So they don't feel necessarily okay with being at a particular organization, so they leave. In something like this, sometimes people do get sick and they have to leave, right? There's all sorts of things like that happen, but if you have that kind of environment, then you're going to miss out on the people that are actually going to be top performing in other areas and do other things. Now, the question is that you're asking is, okay, not everybody is top performing. Absolutely, not everybody is top performing. That's kind of what the law suggests. But what we have to do as firms, as leaders, business managers, as leaders of heads of state, leaders of different states around us, and all those kind of people, what we have to do is identify the areas where people can actually perform and do really well and be themselves with those particular things, and then invest in getting people to understand what those particular things are, as well as getting them to build a skill competency in that particular thing. Now, it seems kind of strange and unusual, but how do you do those kind of things? Well, generally it's through education. Generally it is through just having conversations with people and helping them out, doing really simple things like that. That's how they identify the things that they're really good at. If somebody has a problem and you ask them, can you help me out with this thing? It's funny how somebody that's 80 years old, that's 90 years old, will probably help you out. Some of the most wonderful people that I know, including my mom, by the way, I know you're going to watch this, they will do some really wonderful things just because that they just will do it, right? So they'll sit there. So for example, a large contingent of people that were making masks early on in the spring of 2020, when there was a shortage of masks, were actually people that were sitting at home doing nothing, that we would consider them as probably not high performers in any sort of way, but they actually were doing a lot for our economy and doing a lot for our health around us, right? So we have to think about those things. And the last thing I want you to think about too is sometimes we imagine that those particular individuals, or those particular those particular folks as kind of costs or waste to the economy, right? That they are not necessarily producing anything. So anybody over the age of, I'm going to say it, anybody under the age of 18, anybody over the age of 65, anybody that is not performing in the way that they should, so they have maybe a long-term illness, or they have some sort of mental disease, for example, that prevents them from doing something, that we think of them as a cost to the economy. That's not the way that you should be thinking about it in any sort of way, because there are opportunities that they can see, and if you give them the right sort of situation, they could be actually extremely good performers. So, example of this, sometimes what you want in an organization is to have Slack resources. So Slack resources allow you to adapt when there's something going on. The environment changes rather quickly. And one way you have that is by having excess resources that are sitting there that can fulfill something when the time needs to be done. So whether that particular thing is doing stuff about production, right, which is sort of one part of our economy, but it could be other things that we should be, or we could be thinking about. So for example, being cared for and being loved is a really important thing. And when there is downtime like this, or when people are scared, when you feel loved, when there is a portion of the population, maybe they're over the age of 65, that really love on people, they can really get people through things and help them out a lot. And the same with other people around you. So you can't, when my logic is, and what I'm getting at is that focusing on the average, really looking at high-performing individuals and only selecting high-performing individuals, the population, the sample that you're getting is going to dwindle quite dramatically, because we just don't have individuals that are suited to many different conditions under many different ways. It's just not physically possible in terms of what we do as human beings. So in order for us to succeed as companies, as nations, as whoever, as families, we need to keep investing in the people that are most vulnerable and help out those people that are most vulnerable, because you have no idea who's going to be the next Albert Einstein in our population. And this was really true stuff, right? So Albert Einstein was persecuted, or he had to leave, the sort of Austria, Germany kind of location a long time ago for fears of something really bad happening. And where did he go to? To the one country that cared for him. And guess what happened to our country because of that? It became remarkable. All right, so that's all I wanted to say. Take care and have a wonderful day. Bye.